What is it that makes Billie Eilish's song Birds of a Feather so incredibly genius? Well, today we're breaking it down. While most people focus on the instrumental arrangement, I'm going to show you what really matters, the vocals and how they drive the song. I'll take apart the a cappella, highlighting specific moments, and show you exactly how the vocals, melodies, harmonies, and arrangement work together to create something unforgettable. And most importantly, I'll show you how to apply these simple yet powerful techniques to your own music, helping you write songs that you truly believe in. Let's start with the rule of three and how it applies in the verses. The rule of three is simple. When you repeat something, the third iteration of it introduces a change to keep it interesting. This can be applied to songwriting, arrangement, production, vocal production, pretty much anything. And in the verses of Birds of a Feather, the same melodic motif is repeated 8 times in each verse. But how do they keep it from getting boring? Let me play you the main motif.
I want you to stay till I'm in the grave.
That tiny little melody there is repeated 16 times in total in the song. But how is it that they keep it from becoming boring? Well, the first phrase introduces the melody. The second time it repeats it, setting up an expectation for the audience. And the third time we break that expectation. And in this case, Billie has extended the melody, introducing this orange section, which is effectively the response to the initial motif. And by extending the melody, it creates more interest for the listener. And you can see it happening again here. When we have the A section followed by the B section, we have the initial time that it's sung, the repeat, and then here, when we return back to just the motif alone, that is the third iteration of it. So it's doing the same rule of three, but coming from large to small. Try this in your own music by introducing a small but noticeable change every third repetition. Whether it's extending a melody, changing the rhythm, or adding a new instrument, it keeps your listeners engaged without necessarily overwhelming them. If you want to dive deeper into this breakdown, then you can actually download the exact Ableton session that I'm using in the description below for free. Now, these changes aren't just about melody. The vocal production plays a huge role in enhancing these moments too. Finneas and Billie use subtle techniques like harmony and effects and ad-libs to create progression. In the first half of verse 1, there's a small breath between the phrases. This might seem completely pointless, but there's actually a reason to it. Let me play it to you.
Brave till I run away.
The breath almost acts as a placeholder, but in the second half, that breath is actually transformed into an actual sung ad-lib on the tonic note. Let me play it.
So I'm going to, 'cause it was always you.
It's subtle, but it keeps things very interesting. Then in verse 2, if we flick across to verse 2, we can actually hear the progression on that. Things get even cooler.
I want you to see how you look to me.
They strip back the ad-libs again in the first half, but in the second half, they use the ad-lib to go from a D, which again is the tonic, similar to the first time that we hear it in the second half of verse 1. But then on the second time that we hear it, it drops down to a C sharp, which gives this almost unresolved, haunting feeling that adds emotional depth to the verse. It's so simple, but so interesting. The harmonies also play a big role in creating progression. In the second half of verse 1, harmonies are layered in to make the section feel fuller. But in verse 2, the harmonies are pulled back to create the contrast before being reintroduced at just the right moment for impact. And not only are they reintroduced, but there's also this incredibly cool stuttered vocal reverb effect. First, let me play you the ends of verse 1.
I want you to stay.
And on the second half of verse 1, we have the harmony added in.
So I'm going to.
And then let's go across to verse 2. The first half of verse 2.
I want you to see.
Now the second half of verse 2, listen out for the harmony and the crazy cool stutter effect.
You're so full of shit.
Incredibly cool. And now we're talking about effects. Let's talk about the main vocal effects, because they're a huge part of the song's character. In verse 1, that first breath wouldn't normally make the cut and probably would have been deleted if it was traditionally recorded. But with that rhythmic reverb and delay, it almost becomes deliberate and adds texture. And in verse 2, there's even a knock on the microphone which is left in, which adds this raw, intimate feeling. These details suggest that Billie and Finneas likely wrote the song with these effects turned on in the room and monitoring them whilst they were recording. By doing this, it allows them to ride those delays and create melodies which bounce off them in real time. So when writing or recording, try turning on effects like reverb and delay to hear how they shape the melody and shape the sound in the moment. You might discover new ideas or emotions that you wouldn't otherwise find. If you're working on your own music and you want to take it to the next level, I'm actually offering free consultations for a limited time. Just check the link in the description below to book a call with me. Now let's go on to the chorus and specifically look at the harmony in the chorus. This section has to be one of the simplest melodies, pretty much pedaling just one single note. But what makes it so powerful is the way that the harmony and the chords completely transform it. The chords follow a 1-6-2-5 progression in D major. It starts with the tonic chord and ends with the dominant chord. The dominant chord acts as a huge pull coming back around to resolve on the first chord, that tonic D major. It gives us the strongest resolution. But when you add that one note melody, something incredible happens. On the E minor chord, the melody creates an E minor sus chord by introducing the F sharp into the chord, which wouldn't otherwise be there. And this adds incredible tension that isn't resolved until the next chord. This keeps the listener hooked. Let me play that to you with just the chords and the lead melody. Did you hear the strong, uneasy nature of that third chord? It was absolutely incredible, and I just wanted it to make me feel better on that fourth chord, and it certainly did that really, really well. But Billie's harmonies elevate this even further. Some of the harmonies follow the chords whilst others deviate from it, creating this motion and complexity around a simple diatonic progression. It's a masterful way to make a simple melody feel rich and dynamic. Let me just play you those vocals alone.
Birds of a feather, we should stick together. I know I said I'd never think I wasn't better alone. Can't change the weather, might not be forever, but if it's forever, it's even better.
So cool. So if you're working with a simple melody, try using harmonies to add richness. You can experiment with harmonies that follow the chords for stability or deviate from them to create tension and interest. Try doing this especially towards the third or maybe the fourth phrase. Before we move any further though, let's talk about the strange arrangement of this song. Most songs follow a relatively predictable pattern, going verse, pre-chorus, chorus, post-chorus, and repeat. But this song is different, and here's my interpretation of it. I seem to think that it goes verse 1, then chorus, which is the birds of a feather moment. Then it sort of goes to this pre-chorus type melody, then into the post-chorus. And it's almost like the second half of the song is the normal expectation for it, where it goes verse, pre-chorus, then chorus, plus the post-chorus over the top of it, and then it finishes with an outro section. The outro section is essentially a reimagined pre-chorus with different lyrics. This constant evolution and shifting of roles makes the structure feel fresh and unpredictable, and they've reflected this in the way that they've approached the vocal production. Take a listen to the first pre-chorus versus the second pre-chorus. Listen specifically to the amount of vocals which are actually present.
And I don't know what I'm crying for. I don't think I could love you more. It might not be long, but baby,
So that was the first time. Let me show you the second time it happens.
And I don't know what I'm crying for. I don't think I could love you more. It might not be long, but baby,
It's incredibly different. There's a huge stack of vocals, doubles, harmonies in the first time we hear things, and it's such a strong performance. Whereas in the second time we hear it, it's completely changed. It's a much, much more relaxed, almost insecure performance compared to the first confident one. And instead of the harmonies, we're replaced with this huge, luscious reverb just completely swamping the track. It really gives a sense that something is about to change. And subconsciously, it just perks the listener up. So don't feel tied to traditional structures necessarily. Experiment with rearranging sections, combining them in new ways to create unique listener experiences. And specifically, the simplicity of this section,
Birds of a feather.
Birds of a Feather, is so crucial here into making that actually happen. It acts as a stable foundation, allowing the post-chorus melody to shine on top when layered together towards the end of the song. Let me play it for you.
Don't wanna say goodbye. Birds of a feather, we should stick together. I said I'd never think it doesn't really matter. Can't change the weather, but not if we did. It's forever, it's even better.
Now, if both of those melodies were melodically complex, they'd completely crash. But because one of them is harmony dominant and the other one is melodically dominant, they actually support each other beautifully. So balance complexity with simplicity in your music. Use one part of your arrangement as a foundation to let another part shine. And zooming out to the macro variations from section to section is absolutely fascinating. Each section contrasts the last, creating a sense of movement forwards through the story. The verse is simple and spacious. The chorus is melodically static, focusing more on rhythm. But then the pre-chorus is flowing, and then the post-chorus combines this fast eighth notes with long sustained notes for a complete climax in the song. And even though the song feels organic, there are actually some artificial touches too. In the outro, for instance, there's this vocal chop which is super cool, just repeating the phrase "till the day that I die." Take a listen. It's pitch shifted as well to match the chords, adding this sense of dystopian, disturbed texture to the human voice. And similarly in the pre-chorus, a super low backing vocal, either pitch shifted or maybe Phineas singing, creates this unique effect. Let me play that for you.
Might not be long, but baby,
These details add subtle layers without necessarily overpowering the natural feel of the song. And contrast is really the key to keep a song engaging. So try varying the rhythm, the melody, the texture, or the energy of each section to create momentum moving forwards and give your song a sense of evolution. And if you found this helpful, remember I'm offering limited time free consultations. All you got to do is just click the link in the description to book yours today. And if you want to level up your rhyme, just like Billie's doing in this song, then all you got to do is just click here to watch this video next.